Out of Washington, the Justice Department just dropped a trove of new documents and hundreds of videos from the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, this comes as Epstein survivors and lawmakers are accusing the Trump administration of breaking the law.
I want to talk to you about something that's been absolutely maddening to watch unfold over the past few weeks, and it has everything to do with how the Trump administration is playing games with the Epstein documents while survivors watch their trauma get turned into a political circus. We're seeing a level of manipulation and disrespect that goes beyond typical government incompetence. This is deliberate, calculated chaos designed to protect powerful people while pretending to care about transparency and justice. Let me start with what happened just yesterday because it perfectly encapsulates the insanity we're dealing with.
By failing to meet last Friday's deadline that Congress set for releasing all of the documents.
Unless more are released, he tells CBS News he'll push for a vote to find U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi in contempt.
I really don't want to go after Pam Bondi. My interest is getting the documents out.
Some files, including one with a photo of Trump and women, were posted, then taken down, then posted again.
Tens of thousands of documents that appeared to be from the Epstein files were briefly posted on the Justice Department's website, and then they disappeared. No explanation, no warning. They were just gone. Then some came back up, then more disappeared. Files with photos of Trump and women were posted, taken down, then posted again. It's like watching someone play a shell game with evidence, constantly moving things around so you can never quite figure out what you're looking at or where the important information is. The Department of Justice defended some of their redactions as necessary to protect victims' identities, which would be reasonable if that's what they were actually doing. But when you see hundreds and hundreds of pages that are completely blacked out, when you see documents where literally every name is redacted, including people the FBI designated as co-conspirators,
others were completely blacked out, which the Department of Justice defended as necessary to protect victims' identities.
A lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party, and you ruin the reputation of somebody.
The president reacted to the release of files.
I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown.
You realize this isn't about protecting victims. This is about protecting perpetrators. This is about making sure that powerful people who participated in or enabled Epstein's crimes can maintain plausible deniability. And Trump's response to all of this has been characteristically self-serving and dishonest. He said a lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people who really had nothing to do with Epstein, but happened to be in a picture with him at a party, and it ruins reputations. First of all, who exactly has had their reputation ruined? Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Prince Andrew has been essentially exiled from public life, and even that only happened after decades of enablement and protection. Those are the only two people who've faced any real consequences. Everyone else is walking around free.
I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing.
Among the documents causing alarm, a 1996 report confirming Epstein survivor Maria Farmer asked the FBI to investigate him for possession of child pornography.
I think seeing this evidence just begs the question of why was nothing done?
And as for those newly released Epstein files, we have a team of journalists going through,
living their lives, maintaining their power and influence. But Trump positioning himself as somehow protective of other people's reputations is absolutely laughable. This is the same man who spent years destroying people's reputations with baseless accusations, who built his political career on conspiracy theories and character assassination, who calls people names and makes up nicknames specifically designed to humiliate them. But now suddenly he's concerned about fairness and protecting reputations? Please. What he's really concerned about is that more information is going to come out connecting him personally to Epstein's crimes, and he's trying to create a narrative where anyone mentioned in these documents is automatically a victim of unfair political attacks. Trump specifically said he doesn't like that pictures of Bill Clinton are being shown, that he thinks it's terrible. And you know what? Bill Clinton's response was perfect. His spokesperson came out and said, "Release all the documents. We have nothing to hide. Put everything out there and let's see all of it." That's exactly the right response because it calls Trump's bluff. If Trump is so concerned about fairness and not ruining reputations, then release everything equally and let people make informed judgments. But that's not what's happening. The way these documents have been released makes it crystal clear what the strategy is. The first major dump featured Bill Clinton prominently. Photos of Clinton on Epstein's plane, references to Clinton visiting locations associated with Epstein, all front and center. Meanwhile, references to Trump were minimal or hidden. Then, as pressure built and people started demanding to know where the Trump material was, suddenly some Trump documents appeared, but they're released in ways that make them harder to find, harder to search, more obscured by redactions, and they're mixed in with material that gets taken down and put back up in an endless cycle that keeps everyone confused about what's actually been released and what hasn't. This isn't transparency. This is information warfare. They've thought this through for months. Planned exactly how to manage the narrative, how to time releases for maximum political benefit, how to use redactions strategically to create certain impressions while avoiding others. It's cold, calculated, and ruthlessly efficient. And what makes it even more disgusting is that while they're playing these political games, there are actual survivors watching their trauma get weaponized and manipulated. Among the documents causing alarm is a report from 1996 confirming that Epstein survivor Maria Farmer asked the FBI to investigate Epstein for possession of child pornography back then, 1996. That's almost 30 years ago. Think about what that means. The FBI knew in 1996 that Epstein was suspected of having child pornography. A victim came to them, reported it, asked them to investigate. And nothing happened. Epstein continued operating for more than 2 decades after that report. He continued abusing victims, recruiting new ones, building his network of powerful enablers, all while the FBI had evidence going back to the 90s that could have stopped him. Seeing that evidence just begs the question, why was nothing done? And the answer, which becomes clearer with every document release and every strategic redaction, is that Epstein was protected. Whether it was because of intelligence connections, blackmail leverage, powerful friends, or some combination of all three, the system decided that stopping Epstein was less important than whatever benefit he provided or whatever embarrassment his prosecution would cause to important people. The slow drip of document releases serves a very specific purpose, and it's not about transparency or justice. By releasing things gradually, in batches, with documents going up and down, and constant confusion about what's available, they've successfully made the story about the documents themselves rather than about the crimes. The news coverage is focused on when documents will be released, what will be redacted, whether the Justice Department is meeting congressional deadlines. All of that procedural noise drowns out the substantive story, which should be about seeking justice for victims who were manipulated, exploited, and sexually abused as children. And that shift in focus is absolutely by design. From a media perspective, government corruption and cover-up conspiracies are way more fun to talk about than child sexual abuse. They're more palatable, less sad, easier to turn into partisan political fighting. If you keep the story focused on the documents and redactions and political battles, the actual crimes committed against actual children fade into the background. People forget how horrific those crimes were because they're caught up in arguments about whether Bill Clinton or Donald Trump is more implicated, about whether redactions are justified, about procedural technicalities. And there's another layer to this that we need to talk about, the way we discuss these crimes in the first place. I've noticed that content creators and even mainstream media have to dance around language because platforms will censor or demonetize content that uses direct terms. So instead of saying rape, people say the R word or essayed or graped or my absolute least favorite, non-consensual sex. That last one is particularly insidious because there is no such thing as non-consensual sex. That's rape. It's sexual assault. Using softer language doesn't make it less violent or traumatic. It just makes it easier for society to minimize what happened. Language matters. Calling crimes what they actually are matters. When we soften the language, we allow the trauma experienced by victims to be minimized. We allow society to avoid confronting the full horror of what happened. We make it easier for the justice system to treat these crimes as somehow less serious than other forms of violence. And that's exactly what we've seen with the Epstein case. For decades, what happened to these girls was treated as somehow less important than protecting the reputations and freedom of powerful men. Think about how differently we handle other forms of violence in the media. When Mark Sanchez, the Fox Sports commentator, got into a violent altercation in Indianapolis that left someone in critical condition with multiple stab wounds, the media had no problem showing graphic photos or using direct language. They called it what it was, a violent assault, a stabbing. The victim's family released brutal photos because they wanted people to see what had been done. The media showed those photos and described the violence explicitly because that's how you convey the seriousness of what happened. But when it comes to sexual violence, suddenly everything has to be watered down and softened and made palatable for audiences. We can show someone covered in blood from stab wounds on television news, but we can't use direct language to describe sexual crimes without risking censorship. That double standard reveals something deeply wrong about how we as a society think about and respond to sexual violence, especially when the victims are young women and girls and the perpetrators are powerful men. The choice becomes either talk about these stories with watered-down language or don't talk about them at all. And the people who benefit from that choice are the perpetrators, not the victims. When we can't speak plainly about what happened, when we have to use euphemisms and coded language, we're participating in the same system of silence and minimization that allowed Epstein to operate for decades. We're making it easier for people to avoid confronting the reality of these crimes and therefore easier for similar crimes to continue. This story is going to keep unfolding with each new document dump, each new revelation, each new battle over redactions and compliance with transparency laws. And through all of it, we have to keep the victims and survivors at the center of how we think about this. These are real people with decades of real pain. They came forward, cooperated with investigations, relived their trauma by giving detailed statements to authorities, and trusted that the system would deliver some measure of justice. Instead, they're watching powerful people play political games with evidence while their abusers remain free and protected. Back in November, there was a press conference where victims, survivors, and their loved ones spoke openly and honestly and powerfully about their experiences. If you haven't watched that, you should. Because when you hear directly from survivors about what was done to them, about how the system failed them repeatedly, about watching their abusers face no consequences while they carry the trauma forever, it becomes impossible to treat this as just another political scandal to argue about online. The Trump administration is breaking the law right now. They missed Congress's deadline for releasing all the documents. They're redacting information that the statute doesn't allow them to redact. They're playing games with what gets posted, and when, and for how long. A congressman has said unless more documents are released, he'll push for a vote to hold Attorney General Pam Bondi in contempt. And you know what? He should. Because this isn't about political disagreements or different interpretations of what transparency requires. This is about flat-out defiance of a law that Congress passed specifically because normal Justice Department processes had completely failed. The fact that files keep appearing and disappearing from the Justice Department website isn't technical difficulties. That's deliberate manipulation. They're testing what they can get away with, seeing what generates too much backlash and needs to be adjusted, controlling the narrative by controlling access to information. And they're doing all of this while claiming to care about victims, while positioning Trump as somehow protective of people's reputations, while trying to shift focus onto Bill Clinton and away from Trump's own extensive connections to Epstein. You know who's not ruining anyone's reputation? The documents. The truth isn't defamatory. If you're in photos with Epstein at parties, that's a fact. If you flew on his plane multiple times, that's a fact. If victims identified you as someone who abused them, that's a fact that deserves investigation regardless of how powerful you are. The only people whose reputations should be ruined are the ones who actually participated in or enabled sex trafficking. And if the full release of documents would ruin your reputation, maybe your reputation deserved to be ruined because it was built on lies and the protection afforded by power. Bill Clinton saying release everything is the right response because it eliminates the ability to play political games. You can't selectively leak unflattering information about your opponents while hiding information about yourself and your allies. You can't claim to care about transparency while actively obstructing it. Put it all out there. Let people see the full picture, and then we can have informed discussions about who did what and who should face consequences. But Trump won't do that because Trump has things to hide. The documents that have been released so far, despite all the redactions and manipulation, still contain rape allegations against him. letters suggesting his involvement with Epstein's crimes, evidence of far more contact than he's admitted to. And that's just from 15% of what the Justice Department has. Imagine what's in the other 85%. Imagine what's in the videos that haven't been released. Imagine what witnesses could testify to if they were properly questioned, and if prosecutors were actually interested in building cases against powerful defendants. The never-ending cycle of documents being posted and removed and posted again is not just insulting to victims. It's a form of psychological torture, constantly giving and taking away hope that maybe this time there will be real accountability. Every time survivors think they're finally going to see the full truth come out, the Justice Department pulls it back, redacts more, creates more confusion. It's cruel in a way that goes beyond normal government incompetence. This is deliberate cruelty in service of a cover-up. We have to keep demanding full compliance with the Epstein Transparency Act. We have to keep pushing our representatives to hold Pam Bondi in contempt if she continues defying congressional deadlines. We have to keep talking about this story, even though they're trying to bury it in confusion and make it too complicated to follow. Because if we let them get away with this level of obstruction and manipulation, if we let powerful people escape accountability for participating in child sex trafficking, then we're saying as a society that some crimes are acceptable as long as they're committed by the right people. The victims deserve better. They deserved better 30 years ago when Maria Farmer reported Epstein to the FBI and nothing happened. They deserved better every year since then as Epstein continued operating with the knowledge and protection of powerful people and institutions. They deserve better now as they watch the government play political games with evidence instead of pursuing justice. At minimum, they deserve the truth. They deserve to have the full story told without redactions protecting their abusers. They deserve to see whether our justice system is capable of holding powerful people accountable or whether power really does place you above the law. And we as citizens deserve to know who was involved, who enabled this, who looked the other way, who benefited. Not because we're obsessed with scandal or because we enjoy seeing powerful people brought down, but because this is information that matters. These are people who still hold positions of power and influence. They're making decisions that affect all of us. And if they participated in or enabled sex trafficking, we have a right to know that. We have a right to make informed decisions about whether those people should continue holding power. So yes, keep watching this story, keep demanding full document releases, keep pushing back against the manipulation and the games, but also keep the survivors at the center of how you think about all of this. Remember that behind every redacted name, every document that gets posted and removed, every political fight over transparency, there are real people who suffered real trauma and who are still waiting for something resembling justice. They're watching all of this unfold, watching their pain get turned into political theater, watching their abusers remain free and protected. And that's not acceptable. That can never be acceptable. And we have to keep saying that until something actually changes.